Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. So what does it really mean to live in alignment? What is it like to connect with that healing energy inside? And do you believe that you have the innate capacity to heal yourself? In this conversation today, I'm sitting down with a beautiful human, Shalane Carter, who is a spinal energetics practitioner and someone who has done tremendous research on the benefits of spinal energetics, really bridging that gap between maybe the world of energy or this more mystical, energetic field that we talk about and bringing it into practical data, into measuring what changes before and after a series of spinal energetic sessions. And so today we're not talking about the kind of alignment that you might find in a yoga pose or in a business strategy, but the kind of alignment that vibrates through your cells, the kind that lets your body, your energy, and your heart feel like they're all connected, and that feeling of coming home to yourself. So today we're going to look at what it means for the body to really come into alignment with its innate healing capacity. What kind of obstacles also get in the way of us coming into this state where we can have our nervous system optimized to heal, and how we can sort of enter into these gateways that open us up to more expansion, more connection, how releasing inherited patterns frees us to live more fully in the now, to live in a more expressed and self-actualized way. So if you've been wondering, is this real? Is energy healing an actual thing? Is spinal energetics or spinal network chiropractic or spinal flow, as these energy modalities, can they actually change and shift things in my body, in my nervous system, in my energetic field? And what exactly is an energetic field? This is the conversation for you, because we're going to get into some actual numbers, some actual science around what changed for clients before and after a series of spinal energetic sessions following the dissertation that Shalane wrote and developed for her PhD. So it's really, really exciting, and I cannot wait to share this episode with you. So let's just jump right in. Hi, welcome. I'm so excited to have everyone here listening today because my guest is Shalane Carter. Hello, how are you?
I'm so excited to be here too. I'm doing really, really good today. I feel like, sun is shining. Everything's like, I haven't spilt anything yet this morning, so all is well in the world.
Perfect. We've met through spinal energetics, and you've been doing this work for how long now?
About 2 years.
Okay.
Between 6 months. Mm-hmm.
And what were you doing before you got into spinal energetics?
I always joke I've lived a lot of lives already, but I started in the cosmetology world. I owned my own business doing like lash extensions and things like that. I've always been in the business to make people feel good.
Yeah.
And then I realized I needed to take care of myself for like my kids, obviously myself. It's like long term. So I got a lot more into the wellness world and personal training and yoga and was really ready for a change in my life and started my PhD program for integrative medicine and was teaching yoga. And one of my clients, that was a lash client, her and I were talking about how I had a clientele that I could not get rid of if I wanted to be like, I would change my schedule to times that I knew were inconvenient that they couldn't make. But these people that were just like, just energy vampires were just, the life out of you. I'm like, it doesn't matter what time of day these people show up, like they drain me. And she had been doing energy healing for a long time. And she was like, well, yeah, I feel great. Like you're a natural healer and their crown sits right by your heart. And no wonder they don't want to leave. They feel great. And so I got into that world. I've always been interested in the world of the unseen, so to speak. So I was doing a lot of that, ended up leaving my lash business and doing a lot more of alternative healing modalities and things like that. And then when I saw spinal energetics, because I've gone to a chiropractor since I was born, so I watched the method and I was like, God, this looks like a lot of like Eastern medicine mixed with like chiropractic. Her opening sentence is like, this is basically chiropractic work mixed sort of traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda. And I was like, shit, it's like I knew what I was seeing. So
Yeah.
Found me in the most like beautiful way of like, how can I still help people in ways that make the most sense to me and utilize my gifts the most?
Yeah, amazing. Tell me a little bit about integrative medicine. What is that encompass?
Integrative medicine is, I always joke, the medicine you should be doing before you get sick.
Yeah, good.
It's a lot more of looking at the body as a whole. The tendency for Western medicine is to separate systems. If you're having digestive issues, you're going to go to somebody who's going to look at your colon. They're going to look at your gut. They're not necessarily going to look at your heart. They're not going to look at your creativity. They're not going to look at the way that you hold on to things that you have a hard time letting go. They're not going to look at the emotionality behind any of it. And integrative medicine is really looking at how do we take care of ourselves and create a life that doesn't create an environment for disease. When somebody comes to me, I'm asking them things about not just like their physical ailments and their symptoms that they're expressing, but then we're looking at, okay, what was your childhood like growing up? What are diet? What's elimination? There's 5 pillars that you're always looking at and asking for. Obviously, elimination, assimilation, things like that. How is the body actually utilizing what you're giving it? Integrative medicine, I think, is almost like I would say, kind of Western, quote unquote, approach to what Eastern medicine has always done.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like Ayurveda. I did like Ayurveda consulting way back in the early 2000s. And it's very much like looking at your whole life and figuring out what's out of balance, where you're not investing any time or attention or care or energy, and trying to bring the whole system back into balance.
Exactly. Yeah. When I think about somebody who's experiencing heart issues and stuff like that, a lot of times they'll tell you, like, at one point, I feel like I had my heart ripped out. I feel like I got stabbed in the back. They'll use all these words that are associated with that same area where they feel emotionally blocked off. And so they also feel physically blocked out. And then it does become a physical manifestation. I think we're getting better in the Western world of looking at health as a more holistic approach that you can't really separate. Just like when you're sad, you don't just feel sadness in your mind. Your body changes, your physiology, your shoulders round, you start to tear, or the muscles around your mouth start to relax because you feel a little sullen. Grief always has a physical expression.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I know when I first started doing yoga, I had a lot of emotional releases through physical adjustment.
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of stuff coming up.
You're like, where'd that come from?
Exactly. And so you start to recognize this mind-body connection. It becomes obvious right away. But it's funny how I think we keep lifing, right? We keep doing life and those layers keep piling up. Even if you have a yoga practice, you can get rid of this top part, like maybe the most obvious things or the biggest things that you're holding, but still life keeps lifing. And it's so fascinating because just yesterday I was in this somatic kind of yoga practice, but it's a little bit more like a somatics class, but it integrates yoga. And I was lying there and at the end, like just before the Shavasana, we were lying there and then like maybe we were sitting and then we laid down after, but pressing along the rib cage at the very bottom, the fascia, just like pressing into it and feeling just whatever sensation was there. And it was like so much emotion came up and it was so subtle and it was self-administered. And so it's very interesting how the body just really has these little pockets of emotion that we're holding and we don't even know about.
For a while, I had a private yoga teacher that would come in, and I primarily was using like more of a yin practice. And there's lots of people here in Las Vegas that do a lot of like CERT training. And so it was a little more that kind of like mobility style where, lots of like really heavy adjustments in yin shapes like pigeon or butterfly or something like that. And sometimes I would come up from a shape that I had been in for 5 minutes while she had been almost sitting on me. And I would be like, hold on a second. I would have no memory of a sad emotion, but little tears or something like that would start to come up. And I'm like, okay, my body just clearly needed to release some stuff.
Yeah, that was exactly my experience. It was like really in the diaphragm area. And it was just my eyes just started like crying.
Yeah. And you're like, there's nothing here, but like my body is. And what's fascinating is tears, like the chemical makeup for tears when you're like sad or having some kind of emotion that's attached to it, the chemical makeup is actually different than if you have like allergies.
Yeah.
Your body chemistry literally changes with emotion.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it's so intelligent, but we take it for granted because it does it so effortlessly and it's part of the human experience that you don't think much about it. You don't pay much attention to it. It becomes normal.
Yeah. And I heard another interesting thing. I know in Chinese medicine, the lungs store grief. And lungs are always my sort of weak area as well. And I feel like that's the emotion that I feel the most actually is like grieving, like deep grief. And I heard this thing the other day about when people lose others that they love in ancient cultures or like tribal cultures, they do ceremonies and like beating their chest. And it's so interesting how interwoven into our culture, especially like from ancient times, were somatic practices to help move the energy in the body.
Yeah. There's like a whole history of like basically separation of body and mind into like current allopathic medicine, which is like what most people know as like medicine. But if you can't explain it, then it didn't belong in the medical arena. So it was easier to separate everything out, to look at, again, the skin as something that functions, just fix the function. If it's not a rash, if it's doing something funny, you just need to fix the symptom. And it's like there was something that happened that cued the body to do these things. They all work together, and ancient cultures always honored that process, that it was never just the one thing. And I think we get away from it because it's hard to explain and it's hard to quantify and hard to wrap your mind around that the stuff going on in my lungs could actually be something that I'm feeling, not something to breathe in.
Yeah. It's just so fascinating how we store emotions, memories, even thoughts, I think, in our body. And it ties in so well with spinal energetics and like the field of energy and the different layers. And even with yoga philosophy, with the koshas or the different energetic bodies.
That's funny because that's what I immediately thought when I first learned spinal energetics and she was talking about the 5 bodies. I'm like, oh, those are the koshas. Like, I was like, oh yeah, but that's what I mean. It's so steeped in just the way that they practice and live. It's normal to them, in those kind of cultures. Whereas to us, I think that's why there's a little bit more pushback in kind of more the Western world in practices like this, because I can't explain to you why beating my chest would help me process my grief, but it does. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. So I want to get into your research because to me, this is so fascinating because you're the only person I know who's actually done any scientific research that involves spinal energetics and trying to quantify the changes that happen through sessions with people.
I am the first person. I open the door, but it also, I think, gives people an awareness of, there is ways to quantify it. Just there's been studies on acupuncture and on meditation and on yoga and all of these things. There is studies out there where people are like, it's not scientific. I was like, what? You're not reading the science then. You didn't look it up. It's there.
Yeah. And so much breath work. And you just have to have access to a science mind like yours.
I don't know if I'd call mine a science mind, but I have a very curious mind, which I think is the premise for science, to be honest.
I think that is the premise for science. So you did research. Tell me about it. It was around autoimmune disorder.
It was. So I studied the effects of spinal energetics on those with autoimmune disorders, specifically women, and they had to be between the ages of 18 and 65 and have been formally diagnosed. So I couldn't take anybody that was like, I have all the things, like, I'm pretty sure I have this. I'm like, no, I need light to see your doctor's note. It helps those people who have a hard time wrapping their minds around things that they can't see, quantify, or explain. That the more that you can create some structure around what you're observing, the more the brain is actually able to understand it and process it. Because if it's too big of a concept for people, honestly, it goes right over their heads. And not because they're not interested, but because they have no perception of it. So it had to be very specific.
Yeah. And so before we got on, I was telling you, I also was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disorder of the thyroid or hypothyroidism.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this interesting theory because so many women, this starts to come up and become an issue as they age in their midlife time. But not many medical doctors measure antibodies in the blood.
Yeah.
It's like a special test that you have to ask them to do. It's not that special. They'll do it, but they don't do it because we can't cure autoimmune disorders. So we don't know what to do with it. So we're just not going to look for it. And then they just cure the symptoms once they get bad enough, right?
Yeah. So when you write a research paper, you have to write about and research several things that feed into it. And so some of the research that's in the paper talks about basically what creates an autoimmune disorder. And the reality is nobody knows. It's a perfect storm of environmental exposure to toxins, things like that. It can also be a predisposition based on what is learned and experienced through your upbringing to then express some of these things. And it can be actually brought on also by prescription medication, which is funny because that's what's also prescribed is for it. Let me give you some prescriptions for something that might cause your autoimmune disorder. So autoimmune disorder, that's part of why I picked it, is it can be this vicious cycle that nobody really understands why, how it happens.
And so in your exploration of the autoimmune disorders, what are the main sort of symptoms or problems that people would express? I'm having this problem or this problem. And then how did you measure or what did you look at to measure those changes?
So the way that it was structured, because I was taking anyone with an autoimmune disorder, that includes a lot of disorders.
Yeah.
It's hard also to find people that they needed to come in every other week for a session. They had to be physically located in Las Vegas or be willing to travel. I had somebody who actually flew in from Kansas City every other week to get a session because she was like, I've done all the things, which always makes me laugh because I feel like spinal is the place that people try or the thing that people try when they've tried everything else.
Yeah.
But because of that, it really limited people that were available. And also they needed to be able to come during my office hours. I have kids. I have a family. I work one weeknight. I don't work weekends, which then also drastically cuts that down. So as far as symptoms go, did it a couple of ways. A lot of the symptoms overlap from diagnosis to diagnosis. So a lot of these things are joint pain, skin rashes, weight issues, fatigue, dizziness. There was a whole list of about 20. So we did both an objective and kind of subjective way of looking at their progress or their experience. I did a weekly tracker where I took those 20 most common amongst all autoimmune disorders, and then they could also write in any ones that were specific to them that they experienced all the time. And then we rated them every single week. So every week, whether they had a session or not that week, then they would gauge it from 1 to 10, like 10 being the worst, 0 being none. Again, this is subjective. That's another thing. Autoimmune disorders, you can have the same autoimmune disorder and have different symptoms, different expressions of it, right? You might have one thing and not have the other, and different extremes. So you might have somebody that it almost doesn't affect them really at all, and people who are literally bedridden by it, and they have the same diagnosis.
Yeah.
I needed a way where I could measure what they personally are feeling. And because of the more holistic view of wellness. I also had things like, how was your sleep that week? Were you on your menstrual cycle? All these things affect not just, again, physically your hormones, or you might have cramping, but they affect your mood if you follow any type of cycle syncing and things like that. Different phases of your cycle, you have different levels of hormones in your body, which then affect the way that you view the world, see the world, interact with the world. And then we also did emotions because of the understanding that it can be brought on by the environment that you live in. The environment is not just physical. We know from people who have PTSD and other things that the way the brain processes things is very complex. Mm-hmm. So when I tell somebody, what does red make you feel? One person might be like anger and hatred and the devil or things like that. And the other person might be like love and passion and, like depth and pleasure.
Yeah.
Same color. The brain has logged it very differently.
Yeah.
So we needed to have something also to be like, okay, if we're changing the nervous system, we're having access to their emotions and the way that the brain has processed experience. So I need to be able to see like their emotionality throughout the week. So then had, I don't know, somewhere like 10 kind of more quote unquote positive emotional experiences and 10 more what we deem negative emotions, which are not negative emotions, but we perceive them that way. We don't want to be sad. We don't want to be angry. We don't want to be resentful.
Yeah.
And then rate where those things fell. And then I use the BrainTap HRV system. BrainTap is known for having this headset that's developed by Patrick Porter and I think his brother as well. But it does like hypnosis and like hypnotherapy and different light and frequency therapy in the eye. Mm-hmm. But he has this HRV measurement system for practitioners.
Yeah.
And it measures all different things in the nervous system. So it was something that all we did was take the heart rate variability, it ran it through the system, and then calculated based on, again, the program, what the program's meant to do. So I could have tangible results. This is a before and after. This is not how you think you feel that day. This is not I had a really great day yesterday and slept really great. So I feel good today, but really like I've been feeling shitty all week. But I forget that because I'm feeling good right now.
Yeah.
Needed something that wasn't clouded by feelings to help people understand some of the validity of the somatic practices, that they are tangible and measurable. You just have to have something to measure them by. And it's hard to measure things that are a little more unseen. But the heart rate is a really great way to do that.
Yeah, that heart rate variability is so interesting. I have one of the Aura rings and you can really notice when you do things that are not great for your health. Or even if you're starting to get sick, your heart rate variability goes down.
And that's basically what they did is they took all these studies that measured heart rate variability in different parameters and collected all the data from those. And that's how the different like slides or parameters are set up. Because there's about 20 different ones that they're measuring. But the people who have the most like resilient heart rate are often the healthiest. And you don't think that, but it's like you need to be able to go with the flow of life.
Yeah.
And the immune system needs to be able to do that. And the immune system being dysregulated, it's usually the precursor is a dysregulated nervous system.
Yeah. And does that affect your biological age as well, the heart rate variability?
Yeah. Yeah. This is really what people want to know about. So once you listen to this, people are like, done, sign me up for a spinal energetic session. But on average, people reverse their biological age by 1.875 years. So almost 2 years biologically younger. But that's just on average. I had some people that were reversing their age by 10 years, 7 years, 4 or 5 years. Like that they were still having stuff going on in their lives. Like they were still having a partner that had cancer. They were renovating a home. Kids were doing kid shit that you're just like, help me, please. Somebody take the wheel over here. They were still doing life, but their biology, because it wasn't in the same state as before, it was sending different signals to the body to respond to the stress.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then
that's incredible.
I'm like, so you're younger? Yes, sign me up.
Yeah. Yeah, forget about the creams and the...
Yeah, like, why would I not do that?
And so were they doing anything else? Was there any changes of diet or exercise or anything else?
No, and in fact, I asked everyone like, hey, now is not the time. to like revamp your whole life. I asked everyone if you can. And again, I understand if you're not feeling good, please go get your meds checked. But as much as possible, keeping them exactly the same. What's fascinating is I did have someone who, during the research project, started having a rash that was like all over her body. She works with a neurologist, I think. So she has this autoimmune disorder. So they did adjust her medication, but she was somebody that I noticed when marking the emotions, experienced significantly more negative emotions. Even prior to this experience, it was about halfway through that she started experiencing like some hives and different things like that. But she had a ton of trauma.
Wow.
She just maintained, again, you have all the way across the board. I say 2 years on average, not everybody. Some people were 7, 8, 9, years younger.
Wow.
Some people, not really at all. But what I did find is that the people who didn't experience as much of a transformation, all of them actually marked more negative emotions across the board.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Which again is hard to quantify because sad is subjective, feeling angry, frustrated, that's all subjective.
Okay, so I have another interesting thing. You gave a presentation about it, and there was something that you were measuring the brain, the activity in the brain and the brain waves. And what did you notice around that?
I was going to, but the problem is in spinal. If for those of you listening, if you've never had a spinal session, you typically start face down in like a massage table. And when you put all the electrodes on the brain, on the head, they're very sensitive. And what was happening was that people were like face down and they would start to move a little and it wasn't picking up the brainwave frequencies reliably. So I ended up not being able to use that. I was really fascinated with that because I had at that point several clients who had worn an aura ring during a session. They get done with the session and they're big movers. They're wanting to sit up, they're shaking, all these things. And their aura ring would track it as an app. So when it's doing that, it's tracking your brain waves are slowing down to more of the theta state, which is like the dreamlike state. You're on the verge of sleeping. But they clearly were not sleeping. But that's what's happening is when you create that environment that feels safe and that you're able to slow the thought patterns of the mind, you're able to access the nervous system. You can change the way that the brain is functioning when you slow those frequencies down. And so because of the environment that spinal creates, or you're trying to create as a practitioner for them, for their body to be able to dip into that state, I think that's part of the reason, again, why people are processing things is because the brain is able to move into a different brainwave state. But I wish I would have measured it. It didn't work, unfortunately.
Yeah. What did you notice? What was the biggest changes besides the age, the biological age, not the chronological age?
Yeah, they purposely age. They didn't Benjamin Button on us. But you know what was really interesting? It was the way that, and this is what I say about all practices. If you're going into a practice or a modality to help work on whatever it is, healing things, trauma, whatever, if you don't take that into your real life, it's not worth it. If you only feel that elevated emotion or you only feel connected to yourself, if you only feel those things in the session and you can't practically apply it, it's like yoga. Yoga is a living practice. If you roll all of your mat back up at the end of practice, you walk out, you're an asshole. Yoga didn't work. Okay?
Yeah, more yoga needed.
Yeah. But people were coming in and they were like, I had this difficult conversation with my family that we've been tiptoeing around for literally years. And she was very nervous to go back. She's like, I think we need to have this conversation. I know it's going to come up again and it's just being swept under the rug. And she's like, we had the most beautiful conversation. And she was like, it was interesting because I felt so present and being able to communicate what I wanted to say without being so overcome with emotion that I lost my point, or that I was so attached to them seeing what I was saying. Like I wanted them to hear me. And I was like, it was fine. Like we just had a really great conversation and we came to a resolution, which I never expected. And like, it was really good. And I'm like, this is what it's about.
Yeah.
Is being able to take these kinds of experiences, being able to be like, I had somebody that was like, they were abused when they were younger. And they're like, I have never told anybody about this. And it came up in like a memory. They're like, I haven't thought about it in years. I've repressed it so much that I don't think about it. If you've never spoken to it and never processed it and things like that, if you're a child, you've probably repressed the experience so much that you don't have access to it in a normal waking conscious state. So being able to slip down into a state where, again, their brainwave frequencies slow down, you have access to different parts of the brain and the brain functions differently. So at this point, she was able to feel almost as the observer and give her younger self the love and nurturing and the understanding that she's like, I wish I would have had at that time, but I didn't because I was a kid.
Yeah.
But being able to experience that instead of being in it, it was more of observing it, almost like giving myself a hug. And so it was experiences like that I'm like, that's why you do this kind of work. This is why I tell everybody, don't get focused on moving. Don't be focused on any of those things, because I have people that literally, it takes them 12 sessions to move it all. And they just think that they're just more of an introverted person. They just experience things more internally. And I'm like, not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's that your body has felt so unsafe to be in that you either have your ego, that's your defender that needs to come in and protect, or you shut down because you don't want to feel at all. It feels uncomfortable. We all process in different ways, but they're like, it was wild. I never expected to have that kind of experience. I never thought about it. So those to me were the best, quote unquote, results, which I can't write in the paper. So I'm glad that you guys are all listening here, because again, that is subjective.
Yeah, and it's so hard, even in my own experience, receiving spinal energetics sessions, not even like my clients facilitating. I'm sure this happens all the time, but just speaking from my own experience, you receive a session and maybe you have some insight come up, or maybe you have a dreamlike kind of experience or some kind of lucid dream, or maybe you're just moving, or maybe you feel ecstasy, or maybe you feel a lot of emotions. There's all kinds of things that could happen in the session. Whether you're moving or not, different things show up into your conscious awareness that weren't there before. And sometimes I think sometimes I'm like, yeah, I don't know, nothing too much happened. Like it just feels, yeah, it was nice. It felt like very relaxing, or very much like it was nice to have time for myself.
Yeah.
But then something like major starts shifting in my life, like in my experience of either who I am or how I'm showing up in the world. Or I've even had things where like the next day I feel terrible. I feel like so emotional and so just like off. Like things are really terrible.
Like an emotional hangover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I totally forget that I had this session at all. And I'm just going through my day like hating life and everything and like feeling totally crappy. And then I get to the end of the day and I go,
Oh,
oh.
oh yeah, about that.
And so it's so interesting because I think that happens a lot of the time. I had one client that I did a session with and she cried at the end, but she just felt like nothing major happened.
Yeah.
And then the next day or the day after, I was teaching a retreat and she says, I had this insight about this and boundaries and this, and I'm not speaking my voice. And I said, oh, that's amazing. That's so much insight and movement of energy. It feels like that session might have really helped open things up. And she's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Again, like it's not tangible. I can't see it. I can't touch it. One of my mentors years and years ago, when I first started doing any of this work, she said something. I don't even know if she realized like how much that imprinted on my mind, but she said, we are taught how to critically think. We are not taught how to critically feel.
Mm.
And so I think that's why it's so hard for people to wrap their minds around the mind and the body, and essentially like your essence or your spirit or your personality or whatever you want to call it, because you can watch your thoughts. If I can observe that I'm thinking, that I am not my thoughts. If you're into like Joe Dispenza, like we get down.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he says that exact verbiage or something similar very often.
Yeah, I think yoga said it. I think Descartes even said it.
Yeah, I always laugh. I'm like, you guys, this like self-help thing that the West is doing, it is literally yoga repackaged. It's the same thing. All the same principles. But whatever lands for you, you take that.
Yeah.
You know?
But we can't see our emotions in a weird way, or like these other shifts that are happening like internally.
Yeah. And what was fascinating in the study was that part of it shows several different components of the nervous system. So it shows like the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. It'll show your stress index. So again, heart rate variability is looking at how well you're handling stress. It'll look at, again, chronological age versus biological age. It looks at brainwave frequencies, but it also looks at the health of the spine. So different vertebrae, but it breaks it up more into sections like cervical, lumbar, things like that. And then also the chakra system and the meridians. So what was fascinating was that people that were having, I'm like, okay, they had tension. They would show up with similar tension patterns. Basically, every time somebody came in, I tracked which process they were. That's what it's called in spinal energetics. I'm looking at the different parts of the spine. It's like your tailbone versus your lumbar spine versus your cervical spine. And then I would track if I did any other processes that are specific to each vertebrae. In Eastern medicine, every single vertebrae correlates with different feelings, with different organs, things like this. So the people that were having these patterns that would come up in the same area, then because we're having these conversations, they're telling me these things, that the areas of their spine and the chakras that correlate with those areas are the ones that improved the most for a lot of people.
Wow.
And what people, when they're learning about Ayurveda or again, yoga references the chakras all the time, but they don't realize that there's actually nerve plexuses that correlate with all those and glands. So I go over that in my paper as well. Like these nerve plexuses they're almost in the exact same spot anatomically. When people are like, oh yeah, there's no correlation. I was like, where? Show me where you see nothing. Because I see a lot of stuff in the science.
Yeah, there's huge electrical correlation to the chakras.
And that's what I always joke. It's almost like in Las Vegas, we have it's called a spaghetti bowl. But it's like where several highways are like interchanging and stuff like that. That's essentially what a chakra is. I was like, it's this spaghetti bowl of energy. Whereas the meridians of traditional Chinese medicine or the nadis of Ayurveda are the side roads, that lead into this like convergence of energy. So it makes sense from both like a quantum physics perspective. Okay, this is an electrical system. Your nervous system communicates through electrical signals. We can't get away from energy. I know you want to, but you can't.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
What I found so interesting is, and I don't know if you said this or if I heard this recently, but I heard it from some scientist recently, but that only 20% of the communication goes from the brain down to the body, and 80% of our communication is actually about the body going up to the brain.
Yeah. And when you think about that, the brain is part of the nervous system, but you have the spinal column, which encases another part of the nervous system, and then the peripheral nervous system, which is all throughout, again, all the way to your limbs. But I always describe it, I'm like, your nervous system, again, has to extend beyond the body, because why would you feel a certain way when you have not seen anything, you have not heard anything, but you're like, I don't think I should go that way. That like gut feeling. Again, this is the electromagnetic field that's around your body that's perceiving something, and it's bringing it into the physical body. Again, electrical, this is energy outside of the body communicating to energy within the body and the electrical system. It's picking up on frequencies, just like a radio. You have to turn to the right signal. Certain parts of the body are attuned to certain frequencies. They did a study that was, to me, this is fascinating. And for people who are like big animal activists, this is maybe not a great reference for you, but they did a study on this tadpole. Different parts of the body hold different frequencies, different hertz. And during a pivotal moment in tadpole cell division, they took the frequency of the eye and they put it on like one of the hind leg areas. The tadpole grew an eye in the hind leg, which just goes to show you that if you change, again, the current and frequency that's available to the blueprint of your field, the pattern that your energy moves, it can change your biological representation.
My mind is blowing right now. That's incredible.
Isn't that wild? When I was reading that, I was like, no way.
That's so crazy.
How have we not figured out how to regrow limbs at this point? But I also think about we have a belief that we can't regrow limbs.
Yeah, it's true.
Technically, we regrow bone all the time. We regrow skin.
Yeah, we regenerate in our liver, in our lungs.
Everything regenerates.
Even our eyes.
Yes. Why would you not be able to regrow a hand, a finger?
Wow.
Because I think it is confined by the frequency of because we have been indoctrinated into that belief. So you didn't expect it.
Yeah, you just think it's impossible.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm so glad you brought this up because I want you to talk a little bit about quantum entanglement. And I think that's where this is going a little bit.
Yeah. Let's get a little weird and nerdy. This is my favorite place to be on the weird and nerdy side. I think most of the world operates from the Newtonian perspective, Newtonian physics, and that's what's taught in schools. When you do this, then this happens. However, the quantum physics is now understood as the way that the world operates. And it was proven by the double slit experiment. So you need to know this to understand quantum entanglement for listeners. I don't want you to get lost once I start talking about that, because I don't want to get too nerdy on you without all the foundation. The double slit experiment, basically, they sent an electron through a slit, one slit, and it was, okay, this is where it goes. It's predictable. When there was two slits, basically the electron, so to speak, had to choose. They shot an electron through these slits, and there was a screen that measured where the particles of the electron hit. Now, the patterns changed based on whether the electron was being observed or anticipated a result, which means that the electron behaved differently based on something that the researcher was thinking or anticipated. I think this is how it's going to turn out.
It also behaved different even with a recording device as well, which is super interesting.
So quantum particles are smaller than protons, neutrons, electrons. So from there, you have subatomic particles, you have quarks, and all these much, much smaller particles. And the principle of quantum entanglement says if something has ever interacted, it will continue to interact. So because of the evolution of our world, everything is entangled. Because of this quantum entanglement, it means that anything, this is why virtual sessions work for spinal energetics. It means that even though I am not next to you, my field will communicate with your field. My body will communicate with your body. So something that happens to me, and I've heard about it from several other practitioners as well, and people in other fields, but is when I'm with somebody in a virtual session, I often will feel what they're feeling in their body. And I ask at the end, like, hey, like I was noticing, like, did you feel a little acid refluxy? And they're like, oh my gosh, yes. And we'll be working on something that would correlate with it and make sense for why they would be feeling that. But my body will be having similar experiences. We see this all the time. Children attune their nervous systems to their mothers. Now, they're not mimicking, but again, their electromagnetic field is influencing the child. That's why when a parent or a caregiver is really irritated, often they have children who are also very irritated. They're quick to anger. They have outbursts, not because necessarily that they are so dysregulated, but they've learned because they've regulated off their parents that when I feel this way, this is what I do. And so it's this attunement that happens. But there was this study done where they brought together two people who were known for being mediums, being able to read people's mind, if you don't know what a medium is, and be able to predict things, stuff like that. They put them together and they meditated with the intent of just being aware of the other person for 20 minutes. Then they put them in Faraday cages. Faraday cages prevent any type of electrical signal to come in. We need the electromagnetic signal from the earth. It has to be replicated in space for them to be able to continue to sustain life. You'll actually get incredibly sick if you don't have Earth's frequency available to your body. So they put them in Faraday cages and they triggered something. I can't remember if it was like a sound or something like that within the cage. The brain waves were being measured. The one person who actually heard the sound was in their box or whatever. The person that was in the other one that was miles and miles away, their electrical signal of their brain responded as if almost exactly like they had heard it at almost the exact same time.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when we're talking about quantum entanglement, this is why intention is really important. You come into a session as a practitioner and you are having a bad day. You are carrying a lot of your own trauma that you're not working through, that you haven't done a lot of these things. Your field is interacting with this person's field. So you're always going to influence them on a very real level. We are constantly receiving and giving feedback to the world. And
Yeah.
so it changes the way that our clients experience a session.
Yeah, it's so important to do your own work and to also, I feel like, receive the work too, because then it's like in your body and in your field as well. But to do your work in all the places, right? Not just spinal energetics, but clear your subconscious crap as
Yeah.
well.
I feel like this about yoga. If you haven't practiced yoga in 6 months, it's really hard to cue to the body in the same way because it's like that connection between mind and body is not as strong. So not to say you have to practice the same way as everybody else, but if you never connect, and that's kind of the whole point of yoga practice is to be able to connect mind and body, to have this moving meditation. If you're not doing that, it's really hard to then speak to that to other people. It's not in your field. It's not in your awareness anymore. People who have never experienced love, who've never experienced a private example, if they've never felt loved by anybody else, it's really hard for them to see when somebody is trying to give them love. They'll bypass it because they don't know what it's like.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's so incredible. And I love this idea. Besides mirror neurons, which
Uh-huh.
are there and essential, and we're not even really sure exactly how those work, except that we start to mirror someone else's experience or we feel what they're feeling or different things like that. But yeah, the energetic impact of that and this quantum entanglement. And I know the more connected you are with someone too, like the more exposure or friendship or feeling that you have with someone, the more that connection is stronger and deeper, the more your energetic field responds to them as well, right?
Yeah. And again, if you're a parent, you feel it all the time with your kids. When they're feeling things, you feel things. You know, your partner, when you're more attuned to your partner, when you and your partner are in just a really good place, you feel really connected, you do feel more emotionally attuned to what they're feeling. The more that you, as a practitioner, attune yourself to different variations of feeling, the less shut down you are from certain experiences, the more you're able to actually be able to hold that space for those people, be able to provide a safe space for them to feel that feeling. Because if you don't feel safe when somebody starts to cry and it makes you uncomfortable, you're probably not going to have a lot of criers and people that can get to that point where they're like, okay, I need to express this because you don't allow yourself to cry. You don't allow yourself to feel that way.
Yeah, it's amazing that journey for myself, speaking from going from a place where I could barely identify like more than 3 or 4 emotions to doing all of that work to learn how to identify emotions, to be with sensation and use the body and sensation as a gateway to understanding emotion.
Yeah.
Like being able to hold space for other people to explore their
Yeah.
emotions. It's phenomenal to see how that access point, it's profound and it's really powerful. And I think it's something like you're saying, we're not taught to know how to be with emotion.
Mhm.
We're taught to suppress it or ignore it or turn it off.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, I think, on the planet
Yeah.
either are like angry or fine
Yeah.
or they're afraid to feel anything,
Yeah.
right? And so we have so much numbing behavior too, because it's like, I just don't want to feel anything.
I think that's part of why this spinal energetics gets such a spotlight on them is because you're moving without, again, any physical manipulation or cueing or anything like that. That movement is a natural part of feeling and expression. When you have kids, you watch them. When they are sad, they are full body, they are on the floor, they throw their head back. Like it is a whole scene, but it's also like that when they're happy. They're jumping up and down, they're screaming and yelling and running around. They're so excited. And as we get older, it's not socially acceptable to express emotion. So we have no awareness or no mirror for that. So even though we're feeling those things, we're not quite sure what's acceptable. And it's almost like spinal energetics gives you this space to not only feel, but be able to express in a way that, again, that belief system of you don't express like this. The people that are loud, the people that are gregarious, they're always, not to say ostracized, but they're too much. They're this, they're that. I'm like, no, honestly, good on them. Let your feelings out. There's no reason to really hold all these things in, but we don't want to be seen. We don't want to be perceived a certain way. We're uncomfortable with attention because of whatever happened in our past. We are so complex when it comes to feeling, the belief systems around feeling, that it makes it, if you're not doing work to untangle that, you will always feel like you're in a straitjacket in your own mind and body. Every time you have a feeling, you're like, what do I do with this?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts around this because it's so intimately been a part of my growth and my experience. But even with the yoga, I feel like a lot of people are very attracted to the practice of yoga, especially in the Ashtanga community, because it gives you a sense of control over your body, but also over your emotional experience then. And so that you don't have to feel things so much because you can just practice and do this very physical thing.
And just breathe through it.
Just breathe through it. Exactly. And so kind of you're shutting yourself down in ways in order to maintain this, I'm going to say, veneer of peace or calm or contentment, right? Control, poise.
It's almost a little bit of emotional bypassing.
Totally. And so to have a tool or to have a modality that gets you back in touch with your body in a way that's allowing your body, giving it the freedom to feel, to express, have an opportunity to see what's actually there rather than trying to control it or hold it all together, and allowing yourself to be okay with not being at peace.
Yeah.
It's profound.
There's no bad parts of you. And I think, to me, that's what I think spinal teaches everybody, is that there are no bad parts, because at some point it did feel bad or messy or whatever. And so we've learned, push through, hide, cover up, things like that. And this is almost like taking the covers off, taking the blanket off, kind of like, Wizard of Oz, exposing the behind the curtain of it's always there. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing bad about you.
Totally. And I've done a lot of coach training as well around the somatic practice of tapping into the emotion and giving them voice and being with whatever experience or emotion or childhood trauma or whatever is there and integrating it. And exactly what you're saying, that there is no bad part. And the interesting thing is with spinal energetics is you don't really have to necessarily give it a voice or go back into the memory. And so in a way, it can feel a little safer for people at the beginning, I think, or maybe in the end too, to just be able to somatically be with what's there.
Yeah. I think people are tired of analyzing what they're feeling. I think they're tired of thinking about how they feel, thinking they should be better, thinking they should be on a healing journey. I need to do this next thing. And sometimes I literally have to stop people in the consult. And I'm like, we don't need to dive into every single thing. Your body will present it, what you need for this session. It won't go to a space that it doesn't feel safe to. And I'm not going to push you there either. So we don't need to uncover it all. It's okay. And they're like, oh, because they're used to going to a therapist that want to talk to me about it. Let's analyze why it happened. And spinal is not that.
Yeah. And there's such a difference between talking about a feeling or talking about a memory and then feeling it and letting it move through your body in a somatic way.
I even think sometimes the downside of talk therapy is that you think talking about it more processes it, and it really just re-triggers the brain to remember it and to feel it again in the body.
Exactly.
If we need to skip over that part, not skip over it. You know what happened.
Yeah.
Store it in your body. It's stored in your brain. It's again debatable, but from the moment of birth, I would say before that, I would say conception, you have a very visceral memory. You have muscle memory. You have all of these things that are, whether you remember the moment or not, your brain was like, oh no, I remember we're there, but we have to catalog that because we can't recall it all the time. Too many things in a day. Yeah. It's like when I have 97 tabs open like I do right now and nothing running as quickly as I want it to.
Yeah, exactly. And so this brings me to one more interesting question or for our conversation, which is, I guess, the idea of quantum non-locality, because it's so fascinating to me that even a recording of a group spinal energetic session that I've done personally, or also I've had group sessions and then given them to clients to do work. Everyone's like, how does it work? How does it work even like at a different time and across space and time and across oceans and land masses?
Again, back to that study that we were talking about where they meditated together and then they were separated into the Faraday cages and almost an instantaneous response from somebody who didn't hear anything. So if you're miles and miles away, I can't hear you. There's no reason for my brainwaves to respond. Literally, like where they measure the brainwave frequencies, right, on the little piece of paper. The peaks and valleys were almost at the exact same time, which means that, again, because we are entangled, the principle of quantum non-locality is that it also defies the law of like things travel at the speed of light. It can be instantaneous. So what they're experiencing when you're like, okay, we sent them a recording, that doesn't mean that they're not experiencing, again, the emotion, the feeling, everything like that, that was in this. Think about it like an energetic packet of that time frame when you recorded it. So in that sense, they're experiencing it for the first time for themselves, like they're there. They don't necessarily need to be there to have that experience. Just like, you watch stuff and you're like, I feel emotional. I've watched this movie 97 times. I know it's coming. I'm still emotional about it. I'm still having that experience. It's that same thing that's happening to you. Is again, you don't even have to watch it. It's not, you're just listening, but you're also picking up on the intention, the energy, the frequency, the words that are being used, the sounds that are being said, or the sounds that you hear from the practitioner or the music, and the body's responding to it. The nervous system's responding to it. So in that way, like, you don't have to be in person. You don't have to be at the same time. And the fact that, honestly, when you think about same time, even time zones,
it's never at the same time, is it?
At the same time. This person is literally hearing this in tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's wild that you're like, oh, huh. Okay. Like when people are like, no, time and space, I'm like, no, for real. Have you ever skipped time zone? That lasts a whole day.
Yeah.
I'm going to Bali and to host a retreat in 3 weeks. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose a whole day of travel. Like, it just is wild to me. And then I think about it and like, and then I'm going to get it back when I come back. So cool.
It is like a little investment.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this concept of time a lot lately too, because it occurred to me that even as an individual, we can say be here now or be in the now or be present, but even our presence is never in the now. So just like everything is so ethereal.
Like big concepts. And you're like, what do you mean? If I am thinking about things that are happening in the past, my biology is responding to things that have already happened. So I'm not really present. I'm actually living biologically in the past.
Or you're bringing your past into your present and now it's present again.
Yeah.
But also, if you're just experiencing, like in meditation, you're just experiencing sensation in the body, there's a delay. I mean, it might be a micro fraction of a millisecond, right? But there's still a delay in what you're feeling to get to the brain, to the thought, to the experience of the present moment.
Honestly, I feel, not to say more tuned in when it's virtual, but I feel like I could like lock in so well when it's virtual.
Electronics, this energy, I love that you said energy packet, because I have a friend who's like a little bit of a intuitive psychic in a way.
Okay.
And she talks about how that's how she receives information.
Yeah.
Is through a little energy packet of a person, and she just unwraps it, sees what's there.
Yeah. It's wild how everybody receives information like that, like intuitively differently. I have a friend, one of my mentors, she hears like people's guides, even in other languages. And she's like, I don't know the language, but it will come to me. They'll be speaking, but my brain computes it into English. And I'm like, that's wild.
I know. All these different like clairvoyance, clairaudience,
Mhm.
clairsentience, claircognizance.
It's a muscle like anything else. It's something that you can strengthen. Some people are more inclined one versus the other, but I think that's why I'm drawn to this kind of work is I do feel things in my body. And so I feel like this type of work, like I do have kind of that like clairsentient thing, but I typically also feel in the body.
Yeah, me too. And as you say, it has to start with belief. It has to start with that openness, like that willingness and wanting to tune in to these little energy packets or tune into the field and be open to that. And that can be scary, I think, for people too, which is
Yeah.
maybe why people are skeptical of things like spinal energetics.
Yeah. Which I always find very funny when people are like, this couldn't be real. And I was like, do you go to church? And I'm not like bashing any religion, but you literally believe in God that nobody can prove exists. So, well, you know what I mean? Like the reality is like the structure through which you see the world, the lens through which you view the world is what you've grown up with, what was acceptable. So if your family has always been like, herbs don't work, homeopathy isn't real, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, homeopathy was actually the medicine of literally the royals in England and France for years and years. They did sun therapy, they did water therapy, all these different things that worked really effectively, but it's just not taught. You haven't been exposed to it. But if you've always gone to church, that viewpoint of a higher being or I believe in that element of faith is in that packet or in that lens. That's the lens through which you view things. But we're talking about the same things. We're just giving them different language. And whatever works for you, if that works for you, that you're like, when I pray to God or whoever, that's when I receive information. And if you say, when I sit in meditation, that's when I receive information, like I'm connected to source or, universal intelligence or consciousness, kind of has the same idea. Don't you think?
Totally.
Whatever packet works for you.
Yeah, I love that. Can we put your paper in the show notes so that if people are interested, they can read it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, that'd be fantastic. And tell everyone where they can find you and work with you if they're interested.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram or TikTok. I will say it's a lot more fun over on TikTok. It's like the Wild West out there, but at Shalane Carter. So literally just my name. I have a podcast called Be the Frequency. Whole bunch of different episodes talking about stuff like this, talking about business. I've worked with entrepreneurs for a long time, like working on their field and changing their field and their information, the way the brain is processing to change the way their business is. There's stuff on business there. There's stuff on health. There's interviews. It's a little fun place. It's taking a pause right now, but there's plenty of episodes, like some over 100 for you to peruse through. And I'm working on a YouTube channel, but honestly, there's not a lot going on over there. That's not the fun place to be.
TikTok. I'm going to look you up on TikTok.
I always joke, like, TikTok is like when you get together with your girlfriends, and Instagram's like when you show up to a business meeting. I'm still me, but just like a different version. It's just different.
Yeah, the energy is totally different over there. Yeah. It is. It's the Wild West on TikTok. I agree.
Listen, you get to dance if you want to. You can leave your fears behind.
Yeah, it's like a wild bachelorette party.
I'm like, the things that people talk about on here and just get on and like ramble. It's like FaceTiming people. Yeah. I'm like, this is interesting. Y'all are fascinating. I was like, and now I'm looking at you and I see all your belief systems and the things that you're saying, the way that you're walking. Like, you can tell so much about people,
It's true. I know. It's a wild place.
Oh, yeah. I love having you guys there. And the only other thing that's going on is I have what's called the Ascension Manual, and it's a 90-day guide to a higher vibrational living. It's kind of like a journal meets like a tracker a little bit, but it has practices for your 5 bodies every single day. That's simple, practical, no nonsense. We don't need to take 3-hour morning routines. And then it also has stuff to help program your brain at the end of the day to be able to prime the subconscious while you're sleeping to anticipate good things happening to you. So you can find that on Amazon.
We'll put it in the show notes for everyone.
Yeah.
It sounds magnificent.
So I think that's all I got going on right now.
That's great. It's so wonderful to connect with you. And thank you so much for sharing all of this incredible research and all of your experience working with different people in this field.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Again, I'm like, yes, have me on. I'll talk for hours.
It's so good. Wasn't that just beautiful? Isn't it so nice to be reminded that often healing is really about listening and softening and allowing the body to guide us back into safety, into a space of flow or a space of relaxation so that it can do what it naturally wants to do, which is help us to feel whole, to be functioning at our best and our highest, and to feel really good, to feel really connected and energized. So if this conversation spoke to you, then I would just love to invite you into your own experience of spinal energetics with me. Whether we meet online or in person, I offer sessions here in Calgary in my home, and also when I'm traveling and teaching, I also offer sessions abroad during my workshops, which are coming up. I'll be in Brazil and Brussels and Scotland. It's very, very soon in the month of October. So if you would like a session with me while I'm on the road, please send me a DM and we can find a time where we can meet. And if you'd like to meet online sessions are amazing. They work in a very powerful way through this quantum entanglement, through the field. It's very, very profound for many people. And these sessions are really designed to help you release what's no longer serving you, to regulate your nervous system, to let go, release, and then reconnect with your inherent state of wholeness. Come back to your soul and realign with what feels good, to find more ease, more joy, more connection, more love in your life. So the link to book a session with me is in the show notes. And if you have trouble finding it, just reach out to me on Instagram, Harmony Slater Official. Send me a DM and I would love to connect with you. So until next time, remember, your body is not a problem to fix, but it is a portal to your freedom, to pure, true, unconditional love, and to waking up to your enlightenment. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.